Hey nerds, what's up? So I always see these sort of threads on Reddit and it seemed just too fun to pass up. So today I'm talking about 5 super petty things I hate in fantasy books. Now when I talk petty, I want it to actually be petty. Petty means of little importance. It means trivial. So a lot of these things I see, I always feel like aren't very trivial. Like they're things that will affect an entire book or plot lines, and those don't seem trivial to me. So I'm gonna talk about ones that are even in books that I really like, but are just things that get on my nerves. So let's get into it. Now, the first one, if you follow me on Instagram, I have complained about before and like nobody agrees with me. So that's why I'm starting off this one. And it is inappropriate uses of blinking. There are all these fantasy novels that talk about people standing there and blinking. Like who does that in real life? Stands there and just like, no, we blink all the time because we have to blink. And there's appropriate uses, like maybe someone blinking in surprise if they get shocked, or like that one meme where the guy is like sarcastically blinking, although I don't know how you'd write about that in a novel. The inappropriate ways to use that is all the time people are just standing there saying, he blinked, he just stood there and blinked. He blinked at her. I mean, excuse me, what? People, like, that just doesn't make sense. Like, I get it, maybe they're trying to say that they were silent, so just say they were silent. Now, this happens in books all the time. I'm gonna give you an example just because it's a book I read somewhat recently, Furies of Calderon by Jim Butcher. I actually remembered it so much because Tavi does it a ton at the end of the book. So for example, I found one. That's how these things happen. I don't want to keep you up long, so I'll come to the point. I owe you. Name your reward and you'll have it. Tavi blinked at the First Lord, his mouth falling open again. What do you mean Tavi blinked at the First Lord? Tavi looked in shock, maybe? I told you it was petty. This happened so much. It just recently happened that I remember in the 3 novellas that Sanderson put out for the Skyward series. I just hate unnecessary blinking. There's nothing else I can say about it. Number 2 is when a lot of primary characters' names start with the same letter. There's so many letters in the English alphabet, there's 26. And so when we have a book and like 6 main characters all start with the same letter, like this is high fantasy. These novels have a lot of names for me to keep track, and you can't just do me the solid by making them have slightly different starting points. And you know the book I think that I read most recently that was the worst offender of this? The Silmarillion. Look, I loved this book. I love you, Tolkien, but let's talk about this for a second. We've got Finwë, Fëanor, Fingolfin, Finnegan, Finarfin, Finrod, excuse me? You know how many times I had to look at this back here to remind myself who everyone was? Because they're all related. It's like he used 3 letters of the alphabet for his entire cast of characters. Fantasy authors do this all the time, and it's petty, but I hate it, and it's difficult to get through, and a lot of my favorite stories do it, but I'm still gonna complain about it. So a lot of people have words that they greatly dislike. A lot of famous booktubers have talked about it, a lot of my friends have, but I haven't seen anyone talk about the word smirk. I hate the word smirk. I feel like it's way overused. Like, characters just smirk all the time. They smirk to show personality. They smirk to show I don't know what. But anytime I'm reading a book, I'm just like, why are people smirking so much? There are so many other expressions that can convey maybe similar emotions that are a little bit more pinpointed. And I just feel like we need to move away from the smirk. Number 4, no quotation marks or no chapter markers. Now, I recently just read a book, My Monticello, and I'll put it up here. I forget what the author's name was, but they didn't use quotation marks. And it took me a long time to realize this. I kept getting very confused by what was happening. And I think this is a new thing. I've only read 1 book with it, but I've heard other complaints of new books doing this. And I guess it's supposed to be artsy, but like, at what point is it art and what point is it just like really obnoxious? Same with no chapter delineations, and one of my favorite authors of all time, Mr. Sir Terry Pratchett, does not use any chapters, and it just isn't great. I don't love it. It's difficult. I've had a lot of people complain to me about it when I recommend his books. It's just like, why? Can we just have some chapters? You don't need to name them, just give me some delineation. And finally, the last one, which again, never really influences me liking a book or not, but just something I notice that slightly annoys me, is using children as set pieces. And what I mean by this is authors will often insert children into their stories and then forget what real children are like. And this may be annoying me now because I have 2 small children, but the most recent example I can think of this was in the book The Cartographers, which I read recently. And there was a 3-year-old with our group of characters. And at one point the characters said that they got so engrossed in their project that they didn't eat all day, and it had been 12 hours, and they went home and everyone was happy. And I was like, excuse me. That 3-year-old would have been reminding you every 15 minutes that they were hungry. 3-year-olds want snacks constantly. And it's not just my 3-year-old, it's every 3-year-old I've ever met. They just need to be fed constantly. And there was a lot of stuff like that. Like, okay, look, if you're gonna have a child in your story, it's gonna inconvenience your story, and you just gotta accept that. And yes, was that a reason I disliked this book? No, it's stupid. But I do notice authors do it a lot, and it just takes me out a little bit. It's just like, you've clearly never been around a kid, because that just can't happen. Okay, those are my extremely petty and stupid things that I hate in fantasy novels. And I want to know your petty ones, but I want them to actually be petty. So for example, one I left off the list is when books are published at different sizes, because that's not petty, that's actually a big deal and very annoying, and publishers need to stop doing that. So let me know, what are the things that have made you annoyed at a book that just really didn't matter at all? I'd love to hear them. And as always, if you like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, you can check me out on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.